All right, it is 4 o'clock. Welcome. We'll go ahead and get started for our today's meeting for the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. Thank you all for being here. We have kind of a packed agenda for today. I think we'll have a few other people joining us, and we'll go ahead and get started, and they can just kind of slip in as we're moving along here. Let's begin with our facilities issues, and I'm going to look at you, Mr. Clubb, to get us started on our agenda items there.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Dr. Sinclair, if I can introduce our new person over
Please
here.
do.
Yeah.
Please do. Okay.
So not new, but new to this committee, and Judd Rimmers currently is our Director of Classified HR. And as many of you know, Tyler Clubb is leaving us, unfortunately, and but we wish him well. But Judd is going to be filling in for Tyler next year, and so he's a longtime member of the school district, formerly a member of the team, of the O&M team, and so he's going to be amazing in backfilling Tyler's role. So welcome to Judd.
Welcome. Tyler, we will miss you.
Thank you. Ditto.
Feel like we're in really good hands, though. So thank you for stepping up. Appreciate that. And did we do introduction? Were you here last? Have we done? You want to do kind of a quick introduction at least? Susan, you want to?
Yes, Susan Lindahl. I'm a retired CFO and serve at large on the board. So thank you.
Okay.
Finance and Facilities. So nice to meet you.
And Mary Sinclair, I serve as president of the school board.
Oh, Jessica Hembry, I represent the South area.
All right, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. And
Melissa, would you introduce yourself, please?
she might not, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here. Melissa Rooker. I am the appointee representing the Shawnee Mission East area, and currently serving as the executive director of the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, which is why I'm not in the room today. Apologies, but I'm in the State House waiting for the Senate to take up a bill that we're involved in. So I'm glad that I can join remotely and appreciate the IT support to make that happen.
Great. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. So with the same sequence as previous meetings, what we'd like to start off is to show the main Gantt chart and our schedule. And over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, we keep moving that red line towards the right. And just a few, the only thing I can really speak on this is just notice there's really nothing else starting from here. So it's at this point, it's wrapping up the 5 elementaries. We have Tomahawk, which is the last big new build, and we're moving furniture in July 1st. So it's getting close. So and the only other thing that's overlapping our red line right now is the demolition of Catherine Carpenter, and I got a slide on that later on.
Okay.
So under the bond projects, remaining one's Tomahawk Elementary. So it's just a reminder, guys, this was a DLR architect and J. Dunn construction company who's building our around 82,000 square foot elementary school. A few slides and some pictures. Just want to show an up-to-date exterior elevation, and you can see the bricks and the windows and the frames. The metal panels are starting to go up along the side, which is a metal panel. It looks wood, but those are a 40, 50-year product on the side there. Progression inside there in the gym, all the Tectum panels, basketball goals, lights, fully painted, and believe it or not, this picture's a week old. And we had an OAC meeting there today that we just got back from, and the gym floor is down. So all the wood's in, and we're ready to let that sit and cure and sand and move on to the next step. And then progression in the school is pretty much working from the ground floor up. So what I wanted to show is a first floor classroom. All the casework's in, the walls are painted, the carpet's in, ceiling's done, and then on the next slide, you can see on our right there, that's a second floor classroom with the green, and it's just not quite as far along yet. So all the carpet installers are moving their way through the building, and that's on the second floor. And then a great aerial shot provided by Dunn of the actual site as we see it today. So all the site work out front, leveling that out. That's where the playground's going to be. And they're scheduled to be on site, starting the playground equipment in middle of May. So it's moving fast.
It's looking great from the
Yes.
road, driving by.
So at the beginning of the project, DLR provided a couple renderings. And where we're getting at, I wanted to kind of refresh everybody, what Tomahawk will look like projected to match with these renderings. And I don't remember the first one. This is a classroom going to the common space, right? So this will be like you're walking through, moving throughout Tomahawk from the classroom, throughout the building to the main common space.
This is kind of fun.
It is fun. You see inside each one, you see the sliding doors into the classroom and the wall colors, the carpet, the
I love the
furniture.
bold color choices.
The arch into the,
It's like,
What is light up
it's,
wall?
it's like a giant 4x6 light bright wall. And you'll have that hallway on the first and second floor. But this is how this is our main cafeteria, into the kitchen space, first and second floor view into it.
tell me about that fox.
Yeah, so that's a very nice overlook into the cafeteria. But we can use that as a one-on-one learning space. But designed, that was going to be an entrance of the spiral slide that went from the second floor into the cafeteria. But ran into some code issues, and it is now a great little principal nook on the second floor. And then the second rendering, this video is good. So this is the main entryway into the building. Students, staff, parents, patrons, everybody coming into it. This is going to be your main entry point into it. And as you walk in, remember the main office will be to your right. SLC rooms will be to the right. And it's going to take us up into the main master's grand staircase up to the media center. And then once we hit the media center where the stops, pay attention to all the graphics inside there.
And this is the southeast side of the building.
That is correct.
Yep.
You see our elevator shaft, that's the tree we've constantly been discussing.
Is that going to work?
It's going to work.
Isn't it like that at Brown? The tree?
There's a
Not-
tree, but not
I'm
an
sorry,
elevator,
at
right?
Brookwood.
One of the,
It might be at Deemer.
yeah,
Deemer that had the
Okay.
tree?
the tree
I've
house.
seen a tree vader.
Well, so Pawnee has that tree,
Like tree house?
it's like a
kinda?
tree house outside of it, yeah.
You're right.
That goes in, right behind the main office, that goes into the corridor there, in between the corridor and the cafeteria. And then, yeah, so here we are inside the media center and the Tectum panels and all that daylight from up above, giving you the sunburst feel. Okay, so we're gonna move on to capital projects now. And it starts us off at our athletic upgrades. And so, again, the softball complex. So 4 fields, we've always had the 4 fields. We've had field 1 was turf, the other 3 were not. So through this progress, we're turfing the other 3 fields. And believe it or not, again, this picture is about a week old. You can see the dozer moving gravel. All the work on turf is months of drain work and grade work before. And you still see piles of gravel. But it will be completed Friday. And so the fence is going up today and tomorrow, and they're installing the rubber infill on that last turf. And so the softball complex is going to be wrapped up by the end of this week. And then next to it is Shawnee Mission South. That's the all the high school baseball fields, the main the infield turf package, and that as well, they are also installing rubber into their, and it's the warning track material, still needs to go down, and sod. And so from the most recent update is sod's going to be installed this weekend, and south will be accessible Monday. Yeah, so now a lot of this is just reminders. The 4 elementary schools that we're going to cycle out the furniture this summer, Blue Jacket Flint, Mill Creek, Overland Park, and Prairie. So they have the big elementary furniture cycle program this summer. And then moving to the district, the yearly flooring cycle that we try to do district improvements on every year. And Blue Jacket Flint, Overland Park, Sunflower, Brook Ridge, South and West. And at South and West, we are incorporating not only just flooring, but on this project, we've got a lot of ceiling grid, ceiling tile work that's going to go with it too. And then Catherine Carpenter demo. So that is one of the projects right now. And it has honestly not as expected. When we first started doing this, I really thought it'd be on the ground right now. But the permit processes took longer than anticipated, and that's not, I'm not trying to put blame anywhere. It's just one day after next thinking we're going to get it, and we don't. And so, but as of now, I can say we do have the permit. Our company is on site. Silt fences is there. The construction safety fences have been installed, and they will be starting Monday to start demoing Catherine Carpenter. And then our big HVAC, the 5th year, phase 5 of this work with Train, and doing a lot of HVAC repair work. And so out of these, most this is, we try to do, is pretty invasive. We can't really do this stuff during the school year, and it's dedicated to that 8 to 10 weeks during the middle of summer to move forward with these projects. With an asterisk, we have already started at Northwest, and so it has a big chiller project this summer, and we have already immobilized the crews on site. It is temped for temporary cooling, but the entire chiller plant's coming out, and it's a long process to get that completed. But a lot of work at Northwest, and they'll have 2 new chillers, and it's much needed. And then some rooftop unit work at North and South, Shawnee Mission West, and then Ray Marsh, Merriam, Corinth, and Broken Arrow will also receive a lot of HVAC work this summer.
What's the lifespan of some of those units?
So I'm right there on that picture. That is a standard, well, I see 2 fans, so I'm gonna call that probably a 10 to 15 ton rooftop unit. And you're gonna get a 20-year lifespan, 15 to 20 years. And it all depends on the area and how long it runs, right? The more you use it, the shorter the lifespan. But you should expect 15 to 20 years out of a rooftop unit.
Do we have any units that are older than 20 years that we're still trying to get to?
We do. We do.
Okay.
We do. We have a program that we call it our Deebs report on it, but we have every model, serial number, age, and it's broken down, and it'll tell us exactly how each product is. But there's certain items, unit ventilators in a classroom, right? And a lot of times they never get replaced. You just go in and repair a motor and stuff like that. But Northwest, so anybody off the top of your head, what year is Northwest built?
69?
69. So these are the original chillers, right? And they've had some work, but so there are pieces of that can last longer than just 20 years.
They're pretty
Okay.
excited about getting these
They
chillers.
are.
Yeah.
This crewman is excited, yeah.
Something you made though, if it's still working, like, you know.
Yeah.
And remind me, Tyler, are these on a cycle? Like after we're done with all of these, will we essentially always have HVAC projects every summer? Or is this sort of a finite, we're upgrading district-wide?
No, with a district our size, we will always, HVAC should be continuously repairing, replacing equipment district-wide through here. I don't think you could ever throw enough money at it, enough manpower in the Kansas City Metro to change out everything at once. And if you did, 20 years later, you're just going to hurt yourself with doing the same thing.
So probably every summer, we're doing HVAC work somewhere in our district.
Yep. And then I grouped these together. So these are the newest, the 3-year phase projects. And so reminder, hey, this summer, all high schools, 100% LED light changeouts. And that includes classrooms, hallways, exterior wall pack lights, parking lot lights. And we're in it, all those meetings, all that's scheduling, the coordination meetings that's underway right now. And then our HVAC controls. And Mary, I saved this picture and I threw it on this one for us because its detail's perfect, right? But it's exactly what it is. An HVAC tech, I mean, he's right there on that computer. And what this will allow us to do is be anywhere access web-based. And it talks to the controllers. The controllers takes that information, the schedules, the zone temps to the classrooms and to the equipment to hopefully be right at our set point of 72, 74 degrees, depending on the season, and tempering those classrooms. But yeah, we're on year 1 of that, and that's going to be a 3-year project until the HVAC control package is completed.
In the LED lighting package, I mean, it's not only appropriate for energy cost savings, for the environment also, but for the learning environment for our students. It's just, overall, it's just a wonderful thing.
It is, and touch on maintenance too. So with that warranty package that we get with that, it'll 5 to 10 years of maintenance free, no manpower towards any of those lights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So any questions for Tyler on the bond or capital projects? Okay. Forgot to mention, Dr. Stubblefield, we have him double booked, so he is in negotiations right now, so I'm pinch hitting for him. So we do have an update on Centegix, simply that we're moving on as scheduled. So everything is going as planned right now. Let's see if I can, do we have one of those things in here? I probably should have looked before I started doing this. Oh, right back there. So.
Which thing is it? I'm curious.
Yeah, is it that one right back there?
The white rectangle?
Should be a,
Beacon?
yep.
There's one right here, Mike.
There it is,
Oh,
yes.
there we go. Right there.
Magnetized
Oh.
ceiling grid.
Okay.
So those are going up all across the district, not that anyone who's watching can see that. But that took the bulk of the time from the company and from our team getting those up. Right now, over the course of the past few weeks, our staff have been getting the badges. And-
Going through the testing process, making sure those tied into the intercoms. Yep.
Shelley's got hers right there. We do our final training with our staff on April 21st, and at that point, we will be fully operational
Yes.
on April 21st. So it is working, I can tell you that. So one of our staff members who was an early trainer, they did the little push and accidentally, and the alert came through, and it's working. So we're ready to go. Board members, you'll.
Monday too, there's no students, right? It's just a staff day, so it's
Yeah.
a good day to go.
It is. Yep. So we do have a board retreat that night, so just FYI, you guys will get your training and get your badges at the board retreat. So at that point, we'll all be up and running. Yeah, any questions on that?
Great.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so if you guys don't mind, we'll move on to expanding early childhood. I'll take my time with this. If you guys have any questions, please make sure you ask. This is something new. This is something brand new that you guys haven't heard from us on. The entire board, or the board as a whole, has not heard this either. So this is a first look to you and to our community. You're an advisory group, and so we certainly want some advice as we proceed through here. So as you all know, we have a newly adopted strategic plan, and we have many action teams working throughout the course of the year. And one big one is Strategy 1.3.1, and you can see how that's defined. And it is to increase pre-K sites based on facility capacity and district possibilities, to provide equitable access to early interventions and foundational learning through a braided funding enrollment process. That's a mouthful. The team began their work in November, and they employed a 4-pronged approach focusing on marketing, facilities, equity, and partnerships to develop that strategic recommendation. We're, of course, going to really focus on facilities for this group, but we'll talk about the full report to the board at a later date. Their key proposals, and again, we'll focus in on really the kind of the facility aspect of it, is to establish a new early childhood education center to enhance program accessibility. But as you can imagine, we need to focus also on the marketing, the equity, and the partnerships as well, so that we can fill potentially that new early childhood center. Next slide. So as we were thinking about addressing this with you, I thought it'd be important to establish what the current reality is, right? So we have a good idea of what it looks like right now. So for next year, and I think it's important to talk about next year because we are adding 2 additional sites per the board's approval. So next year, we'll have 21 of our 34 elementary school sites with a pre-K classroom. So that's with that addition to Pawnee and Tomahawk. Of those 21, 15 are general pre-K classrooms. The other 6 are unified pre-K classrooms. There is a difference between our school-based sites and our early childhood center sites. And this is, and we'll talk about this a little bit, if the board were to approve us moving forward with a new early childhood center, the team would need to continue that model work because there is a difference between that 5-day at the school sites and the 4-day at the early childhood sites. So there would need to be some continued work there, but the team is confident that that work can take place. You can see that there's 15 students approximately per session at the home schools. We do have wraparound care at 12 of those sites, and wraparound care would be like JCPRD or Y-Care, just so we all are aware. Currently, right now, at the Early Childhood Center, which is located at the old Broadmoor building, they have 14 classrooms serving approximately 204 students, 12 integrated classrooms, 2 specialized program classrooms, and 41 peers attend out of that 204. So the way I had to ask some questions here, guys. So peers, as defined by our early childhood folks, are special needs students who are working alongside general education peers at the center. And as I mentioned before, it is a 4-day week at the Early Childhood Center. Again, trying to tell the story here, right? So why early childhood education is important. This is research from Nobel laureate James Heckman, and really talking about the return on investment. You know, you hear educators oftentimes talking about the need of early childhood education, and for him, it means high-quality early education programs deliver lifelong benefits, and we'll talk about some of those, which do include higher graduation rates, workforce readiness, and reduce special education costs across the course of the rest of their career. So it is highly important, we believe, to support early childhood education. So I'm not going to read all of these to you, but just kind of a little bit more detail about the benefits of early childhood education. And of course, this is probably a bit of a preamble for me or whomever is going to be delivering this to the entire board at some point. But again, it's important for us to get this information out there. So just maybe picking a few here on the slide. Cognitive and academic growth, of course, is a big piece of the importance of pre-K education. 90% of brain development occurs by the age of 5. I mean, that is essential, right? And so it's important to get those skills established at an early age. Social emotional development fosters that curiosity, creativity, and that love for learning. Closing achievement gaps. Reduces the disparities. And one of the things that we celebrate here in Shawnee Mission is the diversity that we have across our district. And not all families can provide the same support as others, right? So having a school-based early childhood education program reduces those disparities, we think, at a very early age. And then finally, economic and societal impact. Early interventions reduce future costs in remedial education and, of course, social services. So just some information there. Any questions at this point? I said I wasn't going to go fast, but I kind of was.
Dr. Schumacher, this is Melissa.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you. My God, this is the most exciting news. I applaud and appreciate the focus on early childhood. I give very similar talks in my work about the importance. So thank you for everything, and just let me know how I can be supportive.
We absolutely will. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks to the team. The team did the work. I'm just reporting on it, so. So as we keep going, again, kind of focusing back on what the team reported back, and so those key recommendations. And so this is a more concise slide about what their recommendations are. We're clearly in this setting going to focus on number one, and that is that new early childhood center for that comprehensive pre-K options, that wrap care before and after school. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. And teacher training. You can see there's an additional 6 other recommendations that the team has made to the executive leadership team, which we'll consider as we begin to think about reporting to the full board. Next slide, specifically to the potential new early childhood education center, kind of the why, right? It would serve as that comprehensive hub for pre-K. And I asked the team to really kind of boil down what the benefits would be. Because clearly we have a site. We have a site at Broadmoor that's working, and it's a good site. And it works for us. But this potential new site would be intentionally designed for early learning spaces. If you've been to Broadmoor, we've done a nice job of retrofitting it to an early childhood center, but it's not specifically designed for that work. And as the team did their work on the action team, they went around across the metro and looked at early childhood specific sites, and there clearly is a difference. A full continuum of classroom models. That's one thing that we're missing at our current site, where we could welcome all learners, all different types of learners, general, unified, integrated, and specialized, so that they're interacting with all types of peers. The team feels like that's really important for a comprehensive early childhood center.
Mike, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would you be able to break down what those 4 terms mean? General, unified, or not?
I knew you guys were going
Integrated,
to ask.
specialized?
I had to get a definition, so here you go. I appreciate it. My homework's going to come into fruition. So general pre-K, these are pre-K age students. They attend general pre-K classrooms. They're eligible for special education students, but they can be itinerant early childhood special education teacher. This classroom is staffed by a teacher. Gosh, I got all kinds of notes here. Either early childhood licensure, the state allows for elementary licensure, but most of our teachers have early childhood licensure, and there's a pre-K aide there. So my assessment is kind of our most genuine, for lack of a better term, right?
Do you want to swap out microphones?
Just cutting it out.
Is it cutting it out? I'm trying. Hello? There we go. Unified pre-K classroom, again, serves those 3 to 4-year-olds. They're eligible for special education services. General education students who are 4 years old can attend. The teacher must have unified early childhood licensure. There's a pre-K aide and a special education paraprofessional. Class serves 10 general education pre-K students and 5 students who are identified with special education needs that require case management. So that's the difference there. For the integrated pre-K classroom, the classroom support 3 and 4-year-olds who are eligible for special education services and are taught by a teacher with that ECSE licensure. Students have a greater level of need and require more specialized supports than the general and unified classrooms. So it's a tiered, a continuum of supports. And then finally, those specialized classrooms, structured learning, much like our SLC classrooms, or they are SLC classrooms. So very high need students, high levels of support. They do have access to peer models. That's important, and that's one of the things that the team really wanted us to emphasize, was the fact that with all of these classrooms potentially existing at the same building, there could be some interaction between those peers across classrooms.
Thank you. And we currently have general and unified only.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Gosh, I'm glad I asked that question. I knew I was going to get that. So again, that centralized hub, flexible placements and transitions, increase opportunities for that diverse peer access, spaces for screening and training. I want to talk about the wrap care. That's something that really resonated with me. We would be able to host pre-K and Y care there. So let's pick Pawnee, for example. So if you had a pre-K student at Pawnee in the morning, we could potentially provide transportation over to the new early childhood center for wrap care, so that parents could have that care for them. So the parents would drop them off in the morning at Pawnee, in my example. The student would be transported to the early childhood center, and then the parents would pick them up from the early childhood center at the end of the day. Yeah.
That would be for which students participating in the?
It could
early
be
child-
any, yeah. So
from all the
the
sites.
school-based sites could potentially have access to that wrap care at our centralized building.
Okay. Yeah, that is huge.
Because not all of them have space for the wraparound care.
That's correct.
Well, I think that, and with the demographics in our schools, and even with single-parent homes and people getting off work, that's a lot to ask when you're getting off. You have to drop them off early, then get off, and in a perfect world, it only takes 10 minutes. When we know things like that, it takes longer for someone to get off every day, and things like that, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. And also a note, and we'll take some questions, or I'll take some questions unless you guys want to take them. No? Okay. We would not, our recommendation would not be to steer away from any of our school-based sites. We would maintain those school-based sites. This would be in addition to. Now, of course, all of this requires funding, but as it sits, that would be our recommendation at this point. This would be an add-on, a value add.
And did they give you, by chance, like pricing or between those two organizations of one or the other or anything like that? Because I know.
It may be in the report, but I don't know what that is. Well, I mean, we already partner with JCPRD and YCare. My guess would be it wouldn't be any different than what it would be at the school-based sites.
So maybe half of half the pre-K sites have the wraparound? I was just trying to remember how many.
Yeah, was it
do
12?
you remember?
I think it was 12. 12.
Okay, so about half.
12 do. Yep.
Okay.
That's 21.
All right.
So that's the recommendation. You might be wondering where we would place that. It would be at the old Catherine Carpenter site. So that would be our initial recommendation to the team. And Russ's next slide has some information that pertains to this.
Part of two, I'd be just curious whether it's questions or just kind of thoughts or reactions, what you have. We're going to have an opportunity Monday at the board meeting to talk about this a little bit. So if there's any questions from this committee to bring to the board, it'd be great to hear about that today.
I would just echo that I think there's a very strong need, and I think this is an exceptional way to meet it by expanding opportunities for learning. And it just enhances everything that happens after that, so as they go K through 12. So I'd be very supportive of it.
Thank you.
One thing I would suggest, I'm a person that looks at graphics a lot to simplify these when people come into, because with so many schedules and things, having something, of course, the need and like how this is going to benefit, the parent. And either a mom or a dad, because I even think of, in divided homes, what's that mean for those parents? To just say, this is what we're doing, we're proposing to make it, what's going to make easier for parents. Because at least for me, I already know I'm in Shawnee Mission. I know I'm going to have a great education for my kids, but with these changes, how's that going to change the day-to-day and the things for the kids? Because I think I love our pre-K program. When my kids were one of the ones when they first started them in the school, and I loved it. And having that after the lunching and the teaching them all of the things, it was amazing. And now to see this grow so big over these years, I think it's a really big testament to the support that we're doing, not just for our schools, but our teachers and our kids. And I think families seeing what we're doing and how that's going to benefit them and make the transition a little bit easier is going to be a really big plus, I think, for them.
Thank you.
Yep, Russ, you want to go? Ready?
So as we're talking about building the early education center, how are we going to fund that? Right now, if it moves forward, we would take it out of the remaining funds from Fund 432 or the bond issuance 2. As you see with this bar chart, we have $29.1 million remaining as of now.
Blows me away.
What's
Blows
that?
me away.
Blows you away? However, of that
amazing.
$29.1 million, we'll write a check back to the federal government for, right now, we're estimating about $2.2 million for arbitrage payment. If you remember what arbitrage was, that's where we invest our bond proceeds and we're earning more interest than is our effective bond that we sold them at. So we sold our bonds at approximately 3.5%, and we're earning interest income at 5%. So basically that difference you have to send back to the federal government. So right now, and that doesn't get calculated until all the bond money is spent, and then we do that final calculation, and then it'll be a check that will go back. So that we think that's about $2 million. So we have about $26.9 million that we think would be available for the early education center. In addition, there's another about $15 million that is in the red, which is the encumbered part. Those are all the continued projects that are currently going on, your Tomahawks, a few others, the turf projects, and, well, not the turf, that's capital outlay. But when we get closer to those projects being finalized, there'll be some money that falls out of there. So there might be some additional monies that will go towards that early education center. And so I guess I should point out that the $29 million, we talked about selling the bonds at a premium. So the bonds were sold and generated $25 million in premium. We generated a little bit over $9 million in interest income. That's the main source is why we have that $29 million available. It's not because we did not do projects that were on our original list. We did all those projects. Some of them we had to move over to capital outlay, like Tyler talked about phase 5 of HVAC. Mm-hmm. That was originally in the bond. That moved over to capital outlay. And part of that reason is, we've been telling you the cost has been escalating. So those 5 elementary buildings all went over what we originally projected way in the beginning. Yep. So a combination of your premium, your interest, and moving projects from your bond over to capital outlay makes that $29 million available for that early education center.
So is there a thought that an early childhood center might cost about the same as an elementary school? And if we kind of get there, what would be our?
Speak to that,
Is
Tyler.
Yeah,
that-
I
am
can.
Getting ahead of the
I'll
curve here?
chime in, and it's going to be very close with where we're at with the schools. So on the schools, we spent anywhere from 26 million to 34 million,
Okay,
right? But those schools were 72 to 80,000 square feet. And so if you want to take those numbers, $300, $350 a square foot to build an elementary school in today's numbers, it just depends on what the square footage is going to be of the early childhood. So if it's 40,000 square feet, yeah. If it grows to 70, 80, then yeah, I mean, it could
Okay.
be up there, up above that 29, but it all depends on the total square footage where we end up.
okay. And could we match with a little bit of capital outlay if that were needed, or is that?
We've talked a little bit about that. Russell, you want to speak to that? We would be able to offset some of the cost with capital.
Yeah, that's correct. So when we get closer to the very end of that project, we will get it all, we'll spend all our 432 probably on this project or another project, but we'll sync it up with capital outlay money to to complete whatever, this project or other projects, to make sure we have all our bonds money spent.
This is really exciting. It's an amazing opportunity.
We think so.
Wow, yeah.
Maybe hold there
This is
first.
Melissa. I'm blown away. Amazing job. And forgive me if you or Dr. Schumacher covered in the presentation. I was in and out of being able to hear all the nuance of it. What is it? Are you far enough along to know about the capacity of this new facility?
No.
Am
we
I
would-
asking a question before?
It's a
way
good-
too early.
Yeah, no, it's early, but it's a good question. We're not there yet. We would work with the action team, and then eventually we would take a recommendation to the board. The board would hopefully approve us to hire a designer contractor, and then that's when that design process would take place, along with capacity determinations as well.
Could I ask,
Well, I'm cheering you on. Thank you.
and it might also be a premature question, but I'm curious, given this is Facilities and Finance Committee, how we would like the operational costs affiliated with the new SMECC that I'm assuming is going to have more staff, more time, more hours available for students, more variety of classrooms. Are we also thinking through the cost to actually operate the center on the other end?
Yeah, I think we could predict initially probably a flat cost as we open it up, but eventually I think we would predict adding new staff, expanding the offerings, and so yes, I think it's a good question. We would potentially need to add some operational cost as well, but that would come in, an eventual report to you guys.
Got it, thank
Yep.
you. And then can I ask one more question?
Sure.
What are we going to do with the Broadmoor building?
That's a great question. I predicted that one too. So
No great proposal goes
Yeah, it's
without-
great. So it is a premium property.
I was thinking 2 early childhood centers. Anybody?
That's not the thinking, but you could guide us that way. There's ongoing needs in the district. We have aging properties right now, or other elementary schools. It's no secret that there is a action item in our current strategic plan that asks us to consider a future bond. So with that being a possibility, that would be a good staging site for elementary schools. We also have some work going on a different action team to potentially reimagine CTC, our Career Tech Center. It's a central location. Speaking of Broadmoor, that could be a possibility. But we also house other things there. We house the clothing closet for SMAC PTA. We house food service. There's a ton of, that's a technical term, there's a ton of land to the south of it that our Shawnee Mission West practice baseball field is at. We have a use for the property, I guess is the long story.
Yeah, sounds like we have lots of competing uses for it. We will not be getting rid of it.
We will not.
You make that really easy.
How to pay for it?
Yes,
Yeah,
make it happen.
got to have a plan.
That's right.
All right,
Okay.
so I wanted to give you an update where we're at in our budget development process. We're down there in the April-May area. We have completed those building needs assessments and gathered those, and I think, Dr. Sinclair, you're reviewing them and maybe going to write responses for those. So, and we have pulled and summarized those responses, and they're built into the draft of the budget that we're going to be presenting to the board at the end of April and May 12th. We did our projector enrollment. HR has met with all the principals to go over staffing for the next year based on those projected enrollments. We'll continue to tweak those all the way through August when we see what our enrollment actually comes in at. I got a slide coming up. We'll talk about legislative update, but today is the start of the veto session in Topeka, and that's where Melissa's at right now. So they're scheduled to go through Saturday. So Once we complete the legislative session, we should know all our funding for next year. And we'll put the final touches on those, when the funding piece, when we present to the board in April and May. Next slide, Shelley. Thank you. And so this is the more of the statutory timeline that we have to follow. To plug our budget workshop, we got one coming up on April 28th where we talk about non-operating funds, which is mainly capital outlay and bond, what we're talking about tonight. And then on the 12th, we'll talk about operating funds, and then we'll start the process, all the statutory process where we have to file notices. The revenue neutral rate, we hope to get out of that this year. There was in a bill to eliminate that for public schools, but I do not believe it made it. So we might be continuing to do the revenue neutral rate this year. So we'll start all that process June 23rd after, and go through July, and then the final approval we'll take to the board at August 25th. Next slide. And so legislative update. The state budget, I believe, I read Governor Kelly might be signed it today. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. But in there, they were going to fund the base increase, which is based off the Consumer Price Index, which they run it on a 3-year average through the month of March. So through February, that would be a 4.33%. So that's approximately $5,611. And we'll get that final number here in a couple weeks from KSDE. SPED, they did put the $10 million back in. That's going to be allocated on the new formula, which started last year, and we approximately think we'll get $502,000 of that money for SPED. For next year, they are not funding the professional development, mentor-teacher programs, and teacher excellence. For us, this year, that was approximately $105,000. So it's not a very significant amount for us at all. We're going to continue to do the mentor-teacher program. It's roughly about $80,000. We'll do that out of operating funds. And then professional development, we've always piggybacked with Title II and Title IV federal dollars to continue to do those professional developments. The odd thing during the regular session, the Senate bill, Shelley, you don't have my updated slide. Senate bill 35 included the 20 mills for schools, for the school general fund across the state. When they removed the property and the revenue neutral rate, they also removed the 20 mills. So I believe the state doesn't have authority to do the 20 mills, so they got to tackle that in this veto session. And they do have, I just saw where something was introduced first thing this morning. It's a Senate sub for House Bill 2125 that would renew the 20 mills for schools general fund. So that's very important. So they'll get that done today or tomorrow. House Bill 2022 would affect our bond. They changed when you can do special elections. So when we do a bond election, we've been doing mail ballots, and we did one January and January, the last two. So they specifically identified the first Tuesday after the first Monday in the month of March that you can do a special election. So if you don't do it on that day, you have to do it on the primary in August or the general election in November.
No more January.
I don't believe, that's my interpretation. I still think you can do a mail ballot, but it would have to be on that March date. So we'll make sure we'll get a good understanding of that. We got plenty of time to figure that out. And then some property tax relief did come out of this legislative session. Senate Bill 35 passed, and they discontinued the 1.5 statewide mill levy. So that's a property tax mill levy that the state levies all across the district. That does not affect school districts. We do not get any of that money. That goes towards their state-run facilities like Kansas School of the Deaf, School of the Blind, the Kansas Department of Education's building there in Topeka, and that's what goes there. It generates about $75 million a year, but I just wanted to point that out because that is some tax relief for everybody in the state of Kansas, but it does not impact your K through 12 school districts. So that's my update on legislative update. Mary, I didn't know if you or maybe Melissa might have something that I'm missing or want to add on any legislative
I can
updates?
give you sort of a live update
All right.
from the State House. You covered a lot, and some of the policy bills, I don't know that I know for sure, but I will say baseline, you were correct. The governor signed the budget. She did a number of about 36 line item vetoes. The state of play currently is the Senate has already overridden all of her line item vetoes, and now the House, when they go back in, which I think they still are expected to do this evening, that it will be their turn to take the package of line item vetoes up. The interesting thing is that they have the option of they can do it line by line, or they can do what happened in the Senate, which is the Senate president made a motion to bundle all of the line item vetoes into one vote and not take them individually. So that is the procedure that was used. The Senate passed it, and the House will take it up. So I think the good news is that the general operating budget is known. You've got the numbers, and the funding is signed into law. So that is good news. And then the 20 mills, I think the tax committees have been doing their conference committee work today to take care of that issue and a couple other things. So I do have confidence they will wrap session up having reauthorized the 20 mills, because it doesn't, the funding for the school finance formula is a demand transfer. It will come out of the state treasury with or without the revenue being collected from the 20 mills, and then everything else in the state budget can get funded. So it behooves them to get that done so they have the funding they need to run the full budget that they have adopted. So that is up to the minute, what I know.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. And the 10 million for SPED, is that still there?
Yeah, that was in the budget as adopted and sent to the governor. So when she signed, it added whatever funding they had come out of the conference committee process having added. And I know, they added some provisions that said KSDE has to take, this funding out of their existing resources and that funding out of their existing resources. That's the kind of thing related to education that the governor had tried to clean up, and it's not for certain that vetoes will be overridden or not, but the House is where that action will take place next. And I don't know if they'll handle it the same way as the Senate. There were some procedural moves used to get it done very quickly on the Senate side. They are allowed to call the question and cut off debate. The House is not allowed that. That is, under House rules, not a thing that can be done. So it may be handled differently on the House side. They may do one by one or packages of things rather than all 30-some at the same time. Or this could be handled, they do have the right to make a motion to consider override of everything in the budget that will be vetoed. So that's yet to be done.
All right,
So we'll see together.
thank you.
I do feel an obligation to say something about the not funding of professional development, mentor teacher, and teacher of excellence. Russ mentioned that it's pretty nominal, 105,000 for Shawnee Mission, and that's probably true, but it is, something we have to offset with our general fund budget. Mentor teaching is a requirement for relicensure or for licensure for teachers, and so while it's a mandate to do that for our staff, and of course we feel like it benefits them and retaining them and making sure that we keep them for a long period of time, we're going to have to fund that ourselves. And so just a comment that we can absorb it, but maybe it's something we shouldn't have to absorb.
Dr. Schumacher, this is Melissa again. I would say it's also required. I mean, these programs are in state statute, so it's, much like statute says the Kansas legislature shall provide 92% of excess costs for special education. There are statutory provisions that set up the method of funding professional development and teacher mentoring that is predicated on funding. And then I would be remiss if I didn't point out that when the state legislature submitted their plan to the Supreme Court to settle the Gannon case, I was here at the time, and the mantra in the legislature was, we need to be given credit for every dollar we appropriate, not just the dollars that flow through the school funding formula itself. And so in the brief that was submitted to the court with the formula and the funding plan, the state legislature included the line items for things like teacher mentoring and professional development so that we would, quote unquote, be given credit for that funding as the court weighed the amount of financial support being appropriated for K through 12 public education and whether or not that amount was adequate under the Constitution. So it's interesting. I will stick with that adjective right now. It's interesting that today their motion in the committee process and the conference committee process was to make a motion declaring that they were funding the Gannon remedy while simultaneously removing the funding for those line items. So it just isn't factual. So it's not just, a difficult financial decision. It also flies in the face of how Gannon was settled and everything we know about how best to improve student outcomes. So I think it's just important for the community to be aware of the impact that has. That is money, much like the shortfall in special ed, that's money you do have to take out of your general operating budget and divert from the things that you need to do for all students in the district. And I wish it was different. So.
Yeah. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate that.
I was going to share, this was one of the things I actually heard directly from a teacher about, and she said it really was disappointing, particularly to feel like the development of our teachers was being undervalued in the budgeting process, because all of this is really important, and it's partially the dollar figure. I'm glad we're going to find a way to keep doing that for our educators, but I think it is an unfortunate place to be trying to save money. It sends a kind of bad message to our teachers.
I'm curious, and this was probably a Russ question. I was in the room when the Johnson County delegation received the presentation from the Johnson County superintendents. And I think it was Corey Gibson from DeSoto who quantified the amounts in terms of the base aid that you get per pupil, what the shortfall in special ed funding, and, case could be made, you could add these professional development and teacher mentoring. And, he was talking about the money they have to use to cover the excess costs because the legislature is not funding per statute at 92%. And he said it was roughly $1,000 per pupil district-wide. I'm curious if Shawnee Mission has done that calculation. And so in other words, we know the base is going to be 5,000 whatever this year, but the net effect is $1,000 less for DeSoto. I'm curious if Shawnee Mission has thought about a similar calculation in terms of what it means for your budget. That's your money for salary increases for staff and all of these. You want to continue to restore staffing and restore services for students and make sure class sizes are maintained and all of those things.
I think what Dr. Gibson did was he took the amount that they were transferring from general over to SPED and then divided that by the total number of students. Okay. So for us, it would be like, what, 22 million?
Yeah, we're in the ballpark about $20 million that we support special education. And if you divide by 26,500, it's roughly about $720 per student.
Which means, and you've got the base aid number. I know you quoted it in your presentation. I had a little trouble hearing it. I don't know where we are for next year, but if you subtract that amount from the base, it really isn't an increase of the amount.
The inflation adjustment? The CPI?
Yeah.
Midwest?
Yeah. I think I heard, Russ, you said 5,000 something?
Yep. It's right now it'd be about 4.3% increase, $5,611
So
base.
you're still if you subtract the 700 whatever number per pupil, you're still below 5,000 per student in terms of your aid. Like, it just feels like we're swimming backwards.
Yeah, I think there was an interesting conversation this session about the additional dollars districts are getting through that automated inflation adjustment, that 3-year rolling inflation adjustment, those were extra dollars to cover some of these additional costs. I mean, I don't know if we look at our costs and look at different components of what inflation is for healthcare or for food or for staff compensation, but I would imagine every penny of inflation, the inflationary adjustment we get in the budget is for inflation, true inflation.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a comment, but if you have something.
No, go ahead.
I think it's a good point. I mean, the most obvious is our healthcare renewal.
Yeah.
That increases annually, except for 1 year that I can think of that I've been here, at varying rates, anywhere from 5 to higher, 12%. So yeah, that alone for every single one of our employees, that eats up that CPI. And then you take in just, toilet paper and paper and food and everything else that it costs to run an organization, for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna make 2 points. One was the health insurance. If it's gonna go up 5 to 10%, that's a big chunk of your budget, and you're only going, CPI is going 4, you're losing there. And then the other one is SPED. Yes, they're giving us $10 million, but that's just enough. We'll probably still, we run the potential of losing on that end for special education because our actual costs, it's a reimbursement method. And so all districts across the state of Kansas, their costs are going to go up, and it's going to exceed the $10 million that they're adding. So most likely we'll lose ground there as well.
So our shortfall is double what they're adding for the statewide budget.
The overall base increase?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if the state is adding 10 million, that's statewide dollars, and our shortfall alone is over 20 million.
Oh, yeah, we're at 20 million where we,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we know what that 10 million will be for Shawnee Mission?
Say that again?
Do we know how much the 10 million will be, of that will be for Shawnee Mission?
Well, yeah, that's where I said about 500,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we know what we have, that's, at least we know, right?
Got a few more pieces. We have property tax, or not, health insurance. We've got to get that number, and then negotiations will, for salaries and benefits will take place second week of May. So that'll be the final piece, hopefully.
Okay. Anything about federal that we want to talk about in terms of legislative updates, or even, I think the state board
yeah,
cut some funding
I
yesterday or
think
day
I can
before.
say that. Yeah, so we had an update from KSDE today. That, for those who don't know, there was a letter from the Department of Ed last week giving the state departments 10 days to affirm that no districts were violating Title VI through their use of, is this what you're asking? I think, yeah. Through their use of, specifically in the letter, it mentioned DEI programs, and if they wouldn't affirm that, then states and their local LEAs would lose title funding. The update we got from KSD today was that that deadline, that 10-day deadline, was extended to April 24th, and that the state was continuing to work with their legal counsel on what the response would be.
Right, so there's still some uncertainty regarding the federal component of our budget.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, all right. And I believe there was a cut to funding from the State Board of Education, but I'm not sure if that was maybe to the Department of Education. I'm not sure how that impacts us regarding,
The state's still working on a cut of ESSER funds that they receive, which helps support letters training, math curriculum. There's multiple programs across the state that does impact, letters training certainly impacts us. So the state is, again, working with the Department of Ed on a resolution there to regain those ESSER funds.
okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Okay, and then I think you all got a copy of our property tax explainer. It's very exciting. And this has been posted to the website, so if you have an opportunity to take a look, share the link with your friends and neighbors, and let them know that this information is available. It's great. Thank you so much, Russ, the team, for pulling that together. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions for our finance and facilities team here? Our next meeting is scheduled for June 5th. Could you go back to the schedule for the budget workshops, just so we can see where we'll be in the budget workshop when we come back together June 5th? Sorry, I'm bringing you back to the PowerPoint. Thanks for pulling up the...
Dr. Sinclair, I did have a question for you and Ms. Hembry and the team. I think this is scheduled to have 4 meetings, one per quarter. This would be our 4th this year. So maybe a question as to the need for the June 5th meeting? We can certainly do it, but that would be, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That would be our 5th.
Okay. All right. All right, so that brings us between kind of the budget workshop for, June, sorry. Okay. So it would be between operating funds and then our revenue neutral rate hearing. Okay. All right. Well, that's something I think Jessica and I can talk a little bit more about.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Okay. I'm good. We'll call it a meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.